the best gluten-free pizza dough that's naturally eggless, dairy-free, and no xanthan gum. Oh, tomato sauce on my fingers. That's really good. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Britt and I'm the vegan food blogger behind the Banana Diaries. And today we are making the best gluten-free vegan pizza dough. This is actually the best gluten-free pizza dough because it's so simple to make, it's so easy, and it produces the best chewy yet also crisp pizza dough crust when baked. You can make this pizza dough in just a bowl or using a stand mixer, and there's even an option to freeze the dough if you want to make the pizza dough at a later time. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so to start, we're going to measure out all of our ingredients. I'm going to be using a stand mixer with a dough attachment. You can also make this recipe by hand, and I have all the instructions for that linked down below in the description box. I also recommend using a kitchen scale, which is what I'm using. I'm using the OXO kitchen scale, but I also have purchased just a $10 kitchen scale on Amazon, and it works great. That lasted me for like 7 years, and then once it died, then I replaced it with the OXO one. Any kitchen scale is fine, really. It's just super important that you're using a kitchen scale because especially with gluten-free flours, you really want precise and accurate measurements, and that's only gonna be achieved with a kitchen scale. Sorry, tripping on my words today. So I basically will just put the bowl onto the kitchen scale and then measure out all my ingredients from there. So just a quick overview of what we have here. We have tapioca flour or starch, same thing. Malay flour. We're using quick rise yeast, and I'm gonna explain why we're using that over active dry yeast, and just to let you know, both are gluten-free. We also have psyllium husk powder, which is what we're using to essentially replace the xanthan gum, along with arrowroot starch, sea salt, apple cider vinegar, a little bit of coconut sugar to help the yeast have like a really fun and happy environment for the yeast. And then we also have some warm water. So, oh, and some olive oil too, because we want that rich, yummy flavor in the bread, or the dough, I should say. You're just gonna love this pizza dough. Anyways, let's get started. So we have 270 grams of Malay flour. That's about 2 cups, but again, please use your kitchen scale. So I've just zeroed this, and I'm gonna add in the Malay flour. I love using Malay flour. It's one of my favorite gluten-free flours because it has a slightly sweet taste to it for some reason. It's really lovely, and it also has like a really nice soft texture when you're using it with breads. You can swap in sorghum flour or rice flour too, white rice flour. This is a tip, like I've made this recipe to be without rice flour, but if you prefer rice flour, you can use it. I do recommend using the Malay flour because it has such a wonderful texture, and again, like not everything is one-to-one. It won't give you the exact same results, but it will give you similar results. All right, so our Malay flour is in our bowl. I'm gonna seal that off. Next, we have our tapioca flour or tapioca starch. You'll notice that it's called either tapioca flour or tapioca starch. It's one and the same, and Bob's Red Mill actually has a great article on that. So yeah, if you're searching and you can't find tapioca flour, just buy the tapioca starch. It's the same thing. All derived from, I believe, the cassava or the yucca root. Cassava flour is also similar, but it's not the same. So please don't swap in cassava flour because you will have a completely different result. So again, we are measuring on our kitchen scale. I just zeroed it again so that we can get the most accurate measurement for this. Let me just double check my measurements because I believe I know the recipe. I've made this so many times that I have nearly memorized the recipe, but just to be sure. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, awesome. I'm slowly becoming an encyclopedia for my recipes, slowly. Get there one day. So that's about 1 cup of tapioca flour, or 130 grams. Next up, we are using, where's my psyllium husk powder? Okay, so I typically like to use psyllium husk powder over the rough husk form. I just like the texture of it. And you will actually need different measurements if you're using the rough husk form. I'm using 20 grams of psyllium husk powder here, so you'll need probably about like 15 grams. But I do recommend using the husk. Sorry, Cosmo is destroying my furniture. I've gotten him so many scratch pads. He just runs, but he never likes to use them. Anyways, back to the psyllium husk powder. So if you want an organic psyllium husk powder, I use Kate Naturals. I love them. I just get them online because my stores don't carry them near me, but they're wonderful. And then we are going to add in our quick rise yeast. We're just using 1 packet or 7 grams. And the reason why I like using quick rise yeast over active dry yeast with gluten-free recipes specifically, honestly, with a lot of bread recipes, to be honest, because it's easier, it's quicker, that's the whole point of it. But with gluten-free recipes, it is just so much faster because, you know, it takes a while for gluten-free recipes to typically rise if you're using active dry yeast, whereas quick rise yeast, it's designed to be really quick, so you won't need like 8 hours to rise a gluten-free dough. You're just going to need like an hour, a normal time to rise a dough. The wonderful thing about this gluten-free pizza dough is that it can be made in like just over an hour, or about an hour and a half, like start to finish with every part of the recipe. So, you know, if you do want to make this on a weekday, it's doable. You can also freeze this dough too, which I'll go over when we've actually made the dough. Anyways, back to this. So now we're gonna add in our sugar. You can use maple sugar, well, you can use maple sugar, maple syrup, or I'm using just coconut sugar, or you can use granulated sugar. A few of my readers like to use date sugar too, so that's also a possibility. But just 1 tablespoon of that. Now we're gonna move on to our arrowroot starch. So this is also what's helping us replace the xanthan gum. So I'm gonna do a tablespoon of arrowroot starch, and I love Let's Do Organic. It's by Edward & Sons because they're organic. Just important to me. I really like it. I can't typically find organic arrowroot starch where I am, but they're organic, so I love it. And then we're also gonna be doing a teaspoon of sea salt. All right, and now we're just going to give that a good whisk in the bowl. And we really want to make sure that everything is whisked nicely together, evenly distributed throughout. So check, it's wonderful to also use a clear bowl because then you can see where there are still flours that haven't been fully mixed together. If you follow me on Instagram, I typically respond to DMs very quickly, and a reader DM'd me when I posted this to Instagram, can I just make the dry ingredients, whisk them together, and then save that? Absolutely. You can definitely, if you want your own like gluten-free flour for pizza dough, you can definitely pre-make this, just don't add in the yeast. So save the yeast, don't add that in, because as soon as you expose the yeast to air, then it starts to, you risk making it go expired and not work as well, which for gluten-free, we definitely want the yeast to be working well. So definitely go and make this if that just like saves you time and also like hassle and stuff. And if you also want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at @the_banana diaries. It's a really fun time. I love posting recipe videos. I have a little bit of a different style on there too, which is kind of fun. It's more of like my fun creative style. And I'm also super responsive. So I love seeing everything that you guys make. It's super fun. So just DM me photos of it, leave ratings and stuff. It's just, we have an awesome community. Anyways, okay, so our flour is now nice and whisked. And good news, I can remove the kitchen scale now, so I'm just gonna pop that to the side. I'm also gonna clear out some of our dry ingredients so that we have a little bit more space to see what's going on. All right, so now that we've cleared out our area, it's time to get to making our dough. So I'm using the stand mixer again with the dough attachment. You don't have to, again, you can make this by hand. All right, and now we have our warm water, so we're just gonna add this to the bowl. And then we're gonna be doing a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And this is super important. Please don't miss this step because this will help stabilize the air bubbles in our gluten-free dough when it's rising and when it's baking, so that you have that fluffy, chewy texture that you associate with pizza dough. It's a little gluten-free bread trick. And then we're also going to be adding in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And this just also helps with the flavor of the dough. It adds to the pizza. And I have 2 bottles out here because I don't think I have enough to do 2 tablespoons. So I'm gonna finish off this bottle. Oh, I just made it. Fabulous. Okay. So that's in there. And now we're just going to lock that up and mix. And you'll see that the dough is a little bit wet at first, and then it's going to, as the psyllium husk powder activates with the water, it's going to thicken up and start to become more like a regular dough ball. My cat just zoomed across the counter, that's fine. And if you notice that your dough isn't coming together, you can add in a tablespoon or 2 of water, but I would give it a few seconds as you make it. So you can see it's a little bit clumpy right now. I'm just going to lightly knead it together, and then it'll just help the mixer continue mixing it. And then you just continue. And it should go. Oh, I'm gonna add in a little bit more water too. So you're gonna need this for about 5 to 7 minutes in the bowl, and it'll come together, so you can leave that aside, or if your mixer is kind of rocking, just like monitor it, but it's not a lot of like hands-on work, which is great. All right, the dough is coming together so nicely. looks about ready. So I'm gonna show you guys really quickly. Oh, this thing always gets stuck. There we go. Okay. Oh, all that vegan muscle on me. Okay, so this is what our dough looks like. I can pick it up. It's like just kind of tacky, but not really. The psyllium husk has worked so nicely. You don't have to do any more kneading for this. We're actually just going to pop it into our greased bowl. So let me grab that. Okay, so we're just going to pop this into our medium-sized greased bowl. It's a nice little ball here. And then we're gonna cover this and set it in a warm area to rise for about an hour. Then it should double in size. Sometimes if your area is really warm, like I live in Florida, it's like 90 degrees outside right now, so I'm just gonna pop it outside in a safe spot to warm up. It'll rise even faster. So I'll be right back. But for you, it's the next slide. Okay, so our dough has now completely doubled, which is awesome. Definitely increased in size, which is what we want. And now we're going to flip it onto our parchment paper right here. So I find it easiest to work on parchment paper because what we're gonna do is we're just going to transfer the parchment paper underneath the baking sheet. You can use a pizza stone or a pizza sheet. I just have a baking sheet and this is how I've always made my pizzas. I know it's not the correct way, but that is what we're doing here. This is also technically not the way that you would make a pizza dough, like a classic traditional pizza dough. So this is just the gluten-free way and we're changing up everything. Now a note about the dough. So right now I'm just gently pressing it into a circle because that's just gonna be easiest to roll it out into a circle. But this is going to make a very large pizza with a thick crust. You can also just divide the dough in two and you can make two separate medium-sized pizzas that are about 12 to 15 inches wide, depending on how thin you want the crust. Or you can make one pizza after you've divided the dough and freeze the dough for another time. So I have all the instructions for how you're gonna freeze the dough listed in the recipe card. So please go check out that blog post, link down below in the description box. But now we're just going to roll out our dough. So it shouldn't be sticky at all when you're rolling. So you really don't need flour, but if you find that your dough is sticky, please do use a little bit of Malay flour is what I recommend. And your pizza doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Pizzas rarely are a perfect circle, which is just fine. All right, and then I'm just gonna kind of pinch these like cracked sides a little bit. Okay, so now what's crucial is you're gonna basically press the dough to form a crust like this. And your dough might break a little bit, but that's okay. We're just going to kind of press it like that because your dough isn't gonna normally form a crust before the topping. So we're just going to kind of signify where we want our crust to be. And that just helps, you know, you're flattening it a little bit. Now when we bake it, we're gonna par bake or partially bake the pizza dough first before we put our toppings, and this will prevent any soggy crusts. But it's going to puff up a little bit in the oven when we're partially baking it. So I'm gonna show you the trick on how to make sure that it's not like too puffy after it's baked. That looks great. All right, and now we're going to transfer onto our baking sheet. So what we're gonna do is super technical and skilled. You literally just slide it underneath and there you go. Now it is ready for the oven. I'm gonna rotate this a little bit because I don't want the edges to be hanging off and for the pizza to droop. But we have our oven preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. We're gonna par bake this for about 10 minutes and then we are going to put our toppings on. So I will be right back. All right, so our pizza is out of the oven. And as you can see, it did puff up. So I'm just going to lightly press it down like that. And this will just help recreate that crust again. And then when we put the toppings on top, it's also going to help the crust puff up a little bit more while the bottom doesn't. I'm gonna start with our sauce, if I can get this open. Oh, there we go. All right, so you can use any of your favorite sauces. This is personally my favorite sauce, so that's the one I'm gonna use. I know it's not a pizza sauce, but I love the tomato basil flavor that it has. It is a little bit more watery, but they also have like chunks of tomato in it, and it tastes really good, guys. All right, so just gonna spoon that on, and I also personally prefer a lot of sauce on my pizza, so you can make this however you want. You can use little sauce. You can also do vegan pesto would be really good with this if you want more of like a fun pizza rather than your classic tomato and cheese pizza. All right. I also like a really thick outer crust too. So that's why I've given it such a nice crust there. So we're gonna rest that, and then I've sliced the Miyoko's vegan mozzarella. This is my absolute favorite mozzarella, so I'm just gonna place that on top. I also just I just posted on the blog this homemade vegan mozzarella that uses beans instead of nuts. So Miyoko's does have nuts in it, and I'm also gonna use all the cheese because we need a really cheesy vegan pizza. So Miyoko's does use nuts, and a lot of homemade mozzarellas use cashews or tofu, but mine actually uses beans. So that's something fun, and you can definitely top your pizza with that instead. So now our pizza is ready to go back into the oven, and it's going to bake for about 15 to 18 minutes or until the cheese is completely melted. And also a note, if your vegan cheese is not completely melting, if you just turn on the broiler for a few minutes towards the end of the bake time, that will just help your cheese bubble. That's my trick with the Miyoko's vegan cheese I've discovered. It doesn't naturally melt for me for some reason, but into the oven it goes. Okay, our pizza is all baked. Look at this beautiful gluten-free crust, and the cheese got kind of melty too and bubbly, which is awesome. So now we're just going to slice it. So now we're just gonna transfer to the cutting board for ease of slicing. Beautiful. Check that out. Gluten-free, vegan. It's so good. Look at how steamy that is. It's a really nice thick crust too. You can roll it out even thinner for a thinner crust, but I like a thick crust. Looks really good, and it has that nice hard exterior, but it's nice and chewy on the inside too. It's the best part. Oh, the cheese is slipping off. Oh, you're just gonna love this. All right, should we do a taste test? Got my slice. This is my favorite pizza. It's so good and so simple, and the dough, it's just perfectly chewy, but also has that crisp edge, especially the crust. When you get to the crust, that's like the best part, in my opinion. I love the chewy crust. Okay, so if you love this recipe, please leave a comment down below letting me know how it went for you, as well as a rating and review on the blog, because that's super helpful for other readers as to whether or not they want to make the recipe and what changes you made to it as well. And that's it. I'm so excited for you to try this recipe. I know that you're gonna love it. Let me know what other gluten-free bread recipes you'd love for me to try down below. I am on a gluten-free vegan bread spree. I have gluten-free vegan cinnamon rolls. We also have a gluten-free vegan sandwich bread and artisan bread. I am just obsessed with making the gluten-free vegan recipes. So be sure to comment that down below, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.